that down, let's move into this, shall we? We spoke a little bit yesterday and over the weekend about the financial struggles at the box office for the brand new Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, at the box office. And right away, they said they projected it for like $40 million for the long weekend, which was already a little bit low. And a lot of people are now running around speculating about why it came in. So I thought we would take a second and talk about what I believe are the three main reasons that Furiosa struggled. Now, listen, it's more than three, right? Whenever a movie succeeds, everybody wants to look at what's the one reason that movie did great? Like Top Gun Maverick. Oh, because Tom Cruise. Well, Tom Cruise has done a lot of other movies that didn't come anywhere near that box office. Because of airplanes. A lot of movies with airplanes didn't do that kind of box office. The same is true when a movie flops. It's very rarely one or two reasons. But I want to go over what I believe are the top three. Now, before we get into the top three, I kind of want to mention a couple that I do not believe are the reason. All right? That I've seen some other people kind of talk about, and I want to address why I don't think that's the case. Number one, people think it's struggled because Garfield. And I get that because Garfield kind of went toe-to-toe with Furiosa at the box office. Furiosa ended up coming in at number one, but Garfield was only this far behind it. So a lot of people think Garfield. Here's why I don't believe that. If Garfield had made $75 million opening weekend, then I would say, oh yeah, it ate up a lot of the potential box office. That could explain. The reality is Garfield only made about $24 million on its opening weekend, which is just a hair behind what Furiosa made. That's not enough to take business away from Furiosa. Also, not a lot of moms with their two daughters that went to see Garfield were going to go see them with Furiosa. Probably not. So I'm just saying that. Number two, I also don't think it struggled financially because this is what I've been seeing a lot of. People don't have money right now. That's been true for a long time. Now, I'm not saying that's not a truism about why some people don't go to the movies as often. Of course it is. It always has been. Absolutely it is. But that's not the definitive reason here, because if you just look at 2023 and 2024, which we're only a few months into, John Wick 4 made $440 million, which was the highest return of its franchise. That's today. Across the Spider-Verse made over $600 million. Wonka made over $630 million. Mario Brothers made $1.3 billion. Barbie, for heaven's sakes, made $1.4 billion. Godzilla x Kong was one of the highest grossing of its franchise with $566 million. Also, Kung Fu Panda 4, one of the highest grossing of its franchise, made well over $500 million. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 made over $800 million. This is the same time. This is just all within the last 14 months. So again, obviously, for everybody, how much money you have will determine how often you go to the movies or not. But considering we're in the same window of time that all these other movies were able to make huge amounts of money, I don't believe that's the reason that people didn't go to see Furiosa. I'm sure some, just why some people didn't go see Barbie, some people didn't go see Wonka, some people didn't go see Dune, which also made over $700 million, by the way. It did. So absolutely, but that's not the reason that people didn't go see Furiosa. I want to address what I believe are the three main reasons. Why Furiosa struggled. All right, point one. At the end of the day, this is a prequel to a 9-year-old movie. You are already limiting your potential audience. Okay, because first of all, your movie is only available and accessible, at least on its surface, to people who saw the other one. I mean, right there, you have by definition limited and put a ceiling on how many people could even possibly come see this movie, because anybody who didn't see that other movie from 9 years ago probably won't even know who you're talking about. So that was one. I think that was an important one. We were talking about Dungeons and Dragons, about how Dungeons and Dragons was a fabulous movie, actually. But so many people wrote into our show to ask before the movie came out, can I even go see it? I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people already felt excluded from seeing Dungeons and Dragons. And I think that was true of Furiosa as well, which leads us into point two. And this is a point I made last week, but it should be brought up again for this discussion. It's a prequel to a 9-year-old movie that not many people saw. This is a little factoid that make people do a double take. Fury Road made less money at the box office than Black Adam. I want you to think about that. Marinate on that for a second. Because again, and I know we mentioned this last week, but in the context of this conversation, when people think of Fury Road, right, we think it was some big, massive hit because it was awesome, got some Oscar consideration and everything, but it's almost like there's a movie Mandela effect going on. You mentioned Fury Road, everybody think it was some big hit. It wasn't. It didn't lose money, but it barely made any. I think it made about $380 million at the box office. And I remember last week and over the weekend, I mentioned that. And there were people who just thought, no, John, you're wrong. I'm like, go check. And they come back, oh my God, you're right. It's like, yeah. So you're starting with a movie that not many people saw in the first place. And now you're doing a prequel to that movie that only that limited number of people are even possibly going to be interested in it. And you end up with what we had. So number one, it was a prequel to a 9-year-old movie. Number two, it was a prequel to a 9-year-old movie that hardly anybody saw. Point three, by definition, in and of itself, this is not a 4-quadrant movie. This isn't a movie like a Shang-Chi or like a Harry Potter film or like something like that where your audience and your demographic are vast. And you're not going to get everybody out, but you at least have access to a lot of potential audience to come see it when you are a 4-quadrant movie. This is not. This is a bleak, marketing-wise, borderline depressing, very graphic, kind of a dystopian future kind of movie that will, as Fury Road pointed out and showed us, is only going to appeal to a certain demographic as it is. Every one of these things on this list is something that winnows away and pares down more and more as you go down the list how many people are even a potential audience member for this movie. Now, of course, it's more than just these three, right? You're doing a prequel without the original cast. That's another one. Some people think, I had this conversation with this one guy. It's like, if you had Mad Max in it, it would have made way more money. I'm like, Fury Road had Mad Max in it and it didn't make a ton of money. So I don't know why you think suddenly just dropping Mad Max in this was going to make a big difference. I don't think it would have. So, I mean, maybe if it was Charlize Theron, but then you got to tell a completely different story. You got to tell the story of what happens after Fury Road, not what happens before it, which, by the way, is the direction I thought they should have gone, but they did this. And by the way, this movie's great. It set 2 records. One record, worst opening Memorial Day in 3 decades. And it set a record for the highest audience score of any Mad Max film. How crazy is that? Highest audience score of any Mad Max film, but also the lowest opening Memorial Day weekend in like 3 decades. All in an era when we have Barbie making 1.4, Mario making 1, Oppenheimer making almost $1 billion, Dune making over $700 million, Guardians making over 800. This is all in the same era. This is all in the same window of time. And this thing made $26.5 million in its opening weekend. A little over $30 million if you count the 4-day weekend. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Harry's. You know, guys, in order to start the John Campea Show, I had to leave my high-paying corporate job in order to set myself up to be happier and enjoy more personal success. Because sometimes to get what you want, you have to challenge the status quo and blaze your own trail. And that's exactly what the folks at Harry's did. You see, at Harry's, they saw customers getting ripped off by questionable products in the shaving industry and decided to do something better. Harry's decided to pave their own road by making beautifully designed razors for a fraction of the price of the other big brands. Exceptional products, honest prices. That's Harry's. I have fallen in love with Harry's, from their foaming shaving gel that feels just luxurious on the skin to their incredible razor that feels just as good in the hand as it does going over your skin. They've got rich, lathering, skin-softening body wash in scents like redwood, wildlands, and stone. You see, Harry's provides German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer. You can get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. Don't settle for the status quo. Blaze your own trail with Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea.
That's harrys.com/Campea for a $3 trial set.
Anyway, Rob, we didn't talk about this beforehand.
No.
I think there are a plethora of other contributing factors to this thing not doing as well.
Sure.
But a prequel to a 9-year-old movie, a movie that a lot of people didn't see, and it is a 1-quadrant movie at best. I don't know. If I were somebody to come up to you right now and say, why do you think Furiosa did as badly as it did?
Well, I think you nailed a lot of the reasons, but I also think that one of the things that I would have done in marketing this film is not tie it to Mad Max. If people know, they know. Furiosa is a cool title, but I also think, if you think about it, Mad Max started in 1979, and the 3 movies, Road Warrior, or AKA Mad Max 2, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Beyond Thunderdome came out in 1985.
Yeah.
And then Fury Road was 30 years later. And I love George Miller. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. He's made wonderful movies that are non-Mad Max films like Lorenzo's Oil. He directed Witches of Eastwick.
Happy Feet, who's
the producer on, and Babe, Pig in the City.
Yep.
And then he directed the sequels to both of those movies. And he's an amazing creative filmmaker. But this film and the entire Mad Max franchise has always been, it's not like this American zeitgeist movie. It's like when Warner Brothers, as much as I love Blade Runner 2049, Blade Runner was not a hit. Blade Runner is a cult movie at best. And I think what's really interesting about these films, and as much as I think, look, Fury Road was one of the greatest movie-going experiences of my life, to be honest, on my birthday, at the Chinese, gigantic. But these movies are niche. They're cult movies. They were always cult movies. Mad Max was a cult movie. And Road Warrior was a cult movie.
Yeah.
And like they've tried to turn these, I mean, I understand you spent $160 million on this film, but it's like, for whom? Where these movies were never, like you pointed out with Fury Road, giant hits. And yet they act like, oh my God, in our circles, these movies are revered. But the general audience doesn't know. And when you, like you said, you pointed out, it's been 9 years since Fury Road. Well, even Fury Road is not a gigantic monster hit. These are niche cult movies that are very expensive. And, I would even go so far as to say we're seeing that a lot, like this over-reliance. And look, man, I love this movie. I'll be honest.
I think it's wonderful.
I'm an easy life of Mad Max.
Terrific movie.
I mean, I enjoy this movie so much, and I love that. To me, it's the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome with the reboot, which is a movie I didn't love when I first saw it, but I've grown to love it over the years. And so, like, this idea that Hollywood can only spend money on IP, like this summer, we're seeing. As much as I enjoyed Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes too, and we're getting Alien Romulus, it's like Hollywood must make new material. Stuff.
But when they do, it bombs.
Well,
that's the thing. Like, new materials coming out all the time, and
I know, but I mean, the studios have to start thinking John Wick wise. Let's make $20 million, $25 million movies that people
100%.
haven't seen before.
Yep.
That's the
100%.
And this idea that you're going after these $1 billion, we're gonna make $150 million movie to make $1 billion. This is not entertainment thinking. This is Wall Street thinking. Hollywood needs to come back to what they used to do, making movies for a price and setting new trends. And the John Wick model is what they should be looking at, not the Harry Potter, which was already a global phenomenon before they made the first film. You've got to start making things that no one's seen before. I mean, even Fall Guy, if you made that movie for $50 million instead of 120, I'm not saying it still would have not been a hit, but these ideas that every studio movie has to be 100 million plus, who came up with that metric? And I understand, because if you look at the movies that they spend all this money on, predominantly they're also the ones that make a ton of money. But why not make 10 movies for $25 million instead of one movie for $200 million?
Well, yeah. Well, now we're going down a rabbit trail.
I know. I don't want to do it, but I'm just saying,
but
these are things, like you said, ultimately I'm sad that this movie, George Miller knocked it out of the park. Everybody in it. Chris Hemsworth was delightfully fun to watch.
Oh, he was so good.
And I think Anya Taylor-Joy was great. I mean, everything about this movie I really enjoyed. And it's just sad that now you have another blemish on Warner Brothers, output, which is a bummer because George Miller knocked it out of the park and he deserved better.
Here's the little confusing thing to me though. If when you go back to Furiosa or Fury Road again, right? Again, it didn't do that well. They spent $170 million making that movie.
I know.
And made 380. Why did they think they could spend $170 million on another one? Which, by the way, I lost the name of it, but one of our viewers in the live chat said, basically, they made a nostalgia movie for something that most people have no nostalgia of.
Right.
Right? You're making a nostalgia movie of Fury Road, but not enough people saw Fury Road. So I mean, and again, you highlighted it, Rob. The real unfortunate thing here is that this is a really great movie. It's such a fun movie. I thought a little bit long. I thought it could have been tightened up.
And
an
over-reliance on CG. And
yeah,
things
and
like
some wonky CG, by the way. But overall, an absolutely terrific movie that did deserve better. It's just that, a prequel to a 9-year-old movie that nobody saw, and it's only for a very specific audience.
Right, exactly.
How good is it going to do?
The world's changed. I mean, the world is also very different than it was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have other vehicular mayhem movies, like not that I mean, my beloved Fast and the Furious franchise, which I've fallen completely out of love with because it's betrayed me. But I mean, it became stupid. And Tokyo Drift, I'll defend it to my dying day.
Yep.
But
that movie's so bad.
Or as I call it, The Drift.
So bad.
It's just that it just makes me sad.
It's going to be very interesting to see too, because we have upcoming, because I don't buy this thing as, oh, nobody wants to go to the movies anymore. I don't buy that because, we just talked the other day, Inside Out 2 right now, they're projecting for an $80 to $85 million opening weekend. They just give the opening projections for Despicable Me 4, which are projecting at $120 million opening. Who knows how big Joker's going to be? Who knows how big Bad Boys is going to be? They're projecting Bad Boys for like a $50 to $60 million opening for that movie, which would be insane.
What you going to do?
It would be insane. And then Deadpool, Joker. I mean, we're going to have to see how the rest of it does.
But these are also franchises that are part of this generation. Whereas Mad Max goes back to the 70s. And I think that
they're all movies that have wider appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. But, people saw Joker when you're probably a teenager when you saw Joker. Now you're still in college or something. You're just out of college. They're of today. And I think that's also important.
Then again, when did the first Bad Boys come out?
It was 90 something.
Yeah, we're getting into the decades all there now. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Clearly, it is not as simple as just 3 bullet points. There's other factors as well. But I also believe there's some factors some people bring up that I think are demonstrably kind of not the case either. Anyway, whatever you think about it, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.